Everybody in serial killer country, my name is Brittany Ransom.
And my name's Brian Joyner.
And this is When Killers Get Caught, a podcast devoted to deep dives into the killers we love to learn about. Usually every week, Brian and I discuss two true crime stories that resonated with us, and then I will lead you down the dark path of learning about who a killer was, how they grew up, how they killed, and most importantly, how they got caught. Then Brian ends our podcast with a segment about the paranormal, something about cryptids, or just the creepier side in life. We want to say thank you so much for listening, and thank you to all the people who have been asking nonstop, when's the next podcast coming out? Because we've had a busy month. I think we both pretty much started new jobs. I got sick. I still sound sick, so you get what you get, and you don't get upset, as I tell the 4-year-olds in my class.
Yeah, this was the moving months for me.
Right, yeah, and then you moved. Yeah, it's been tough. I got both a booster and a flu shot one weekend, and I was just like, I can't do anything. But thank you so much to the people who listen. We really appreciate you. And this week in true crime, something really wonderful happened, Brian, yesterday. Are you ready?
Let's go.
They've arrested somebody for the Delphi murder case in Indiana.
What?
Yep, it's been 5 years. I almost cried when I saw it. Like, this is a case that I've been following for a long time. Now, here's the thing. They weren't trying to release the man's name until Monday. So October 31st. But apparently people got that information and they have released the photo as of today. But for people who don't know what I'm talking about, on February 13th, 2017, family dropped off these two girls at what's called the Munnin High Bridge in Delphi, Indiana. And the two young girls were Liberty and, gosh, why can't I remember her name? I'm staring at her face right now. Abby Williams and Liberty German.
Yes.
And it's weird to people who probably aren't from the area, but this path takes you across this bridge that used to be for trains, but now people just walk on it. And while the two girls were having their, fun thing, they were taking Snapchat pictures. And at one point, Abby definitely noticed that someone was following them. Yep. And she took a video on Snapchat of the man. And that's the only images we've ever had. And we heard him say, down the hill. Yep. And so that's why they called it the down the hill murder for a little bit of time. And so when they went to pick up the girls, they were nowhere to be found. They called Libby's cell phone. It went unanswered. Eventually, it went straight to voicemail, which meant somebody turned it off or they let it just die. The family started searching. And then by that afternoon, they contacted the sheriff's department. Sheriff Lesenby pretty much was the one in charge here. And originally, generally, it's weird because for most part, they don't want to do missing persons cases until the person's been missing for 24 hours. But in terms of children's missing or abduction cases, the kid's normally dead within the 24-hour window. The police were like, maybe they got lost, maybe they moved to a different trail and they couldn't find their way back. Their phones died. The community didn't care. They went out looking that night. The sun went down. The temperatures got very, very low. Remember, it's winter and this area of the country gets very, very cold. Right now, we are getting weird 70-degree days, 20-degree nights. It's very, very cold, and it's not even winter yet right now. So February, we're talking about 0-degree temps or less. So they're they searched well into the night. And then February 14th, both the girls' bodies were found about a mile away from the trail. The man whose property it was is no longer alive. But there was some interesting details about that. Like apparently they learned that he lied about where he was the day they went missing. So that was really suspicious. They haven't released a whole lot of evidence or the things that they've been looking up because they don't want to. It's a weird situation that happens in these cases that get picked up and become nationally known because you don't want to give too much information.
Right, and people
And
want to do like
accidentally
stuff.
tell your killer what you know.
Yep, that's it.
But what they did eventually release was the video. And based on the time of death and the cold and whatnot, that video was taken very close to when Libby died. So ultimately, that video was moments before that man attacked them.
So, okay, my question is it the man that was in the video then that said down the hill?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
All they heard him say was, guys, down the hill. And they got 2 sketches from people who were also on the trail that day. Mm-hmm. And they released these like 2 kind of grainy photos that they tried to, magnify. And that's all we had. And it's a white guy wearing blue jeans, blue coat jacket, a hoodie. And they immediately listed this guy as a person of interest. They released the audio clips like about 2 weeks later. About in April of that year, they released the video clip. They released the sketches about 5 months into the investigation. They were able to pinpoint that there was a unknown vehicle that was through the area. But regardless, I'm just going to say his name because there's going to be a public event on Monday where they give more information about how they got this guy. But his name is Richard Allen. He has a history of violent offenses. People have been doing the work ever since his name has been released. They pulled up VineLink, which contained 2 entries for a Richard Matthew Allen. We do not know the charges yet, but we do know that he was in court on Friday, October 28th. Unfortunately, because the local sheriffs don't want to release everything yet, there is rampant speculation going online right now, but I will be watching, or I will keep up with it, and I'll probably watch the it's not an event, but you know what I mean. It's going to be the police talking to the media on Monday, so I intend to watch it.
Yeah, I just remember.
Another thing is that Delphi is a small town, like 3,000 people. So that was another reason why this was like, how do we not know who this guy is?
Exactly. Like
he's just always been there.
They should have noticed him from the freaking video they took of him.
But the sketch,
yeah, it
feels solid. The only difference between what he looks like now and then is that his face is a little wider now, like he gained some weight. But otherwise, it looks right. There was another guy that they looked into in 2019, but that ended up not. And tips have been coming from around the entire country for the last 5 years. So I'm really I really hope this goes the right way. I know that their family needs the closure from this. You know, Libby and Abby's family it would probably feel good to finally have everything closed and the person who hurt your children behind bars.
Absolutely. I just, I remember when we were talking about this, the first time, and it was brought up, and I was just like, it's so freaking scary. The video that was first posted, so scary. You got this one guy just creepily following you, and he's, says something to you, and, just, it's chills, it's chills again. I'm just glad they arrested somebody for it, and hopefully this is the right person that did it, and hopefully justice is served. So for this week for me. So, Brittany, you work with small children, right?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay, so I know you heard of this already, but daycare workers who decided to scare the crap out of children.
Oh yes,
at work. Okay.
I didn't look into it much because what I actually saw was I don't know if you know her, Keita Rose on TikTok. But she talked about it and how those people should be in jail. And so I was like, oh, what happened?
Well, she's right. Goodness gracious. I'm sorry. Frog in the throat. They have been charged with multiple felonies.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's 4 women. And they're facing 3 counts of felony child abuse for this little prank they pulled. So if anybody doesn't know, there's this video going around. Daycare worker, she's wearing this Halloween mask, gets all up in this little kid's face, scares the crap out of her, and actually not even her. Like they multiple little kids in the video, and it's just.
No, I never watched the video, so I'm gonna look it up now.
Yeah.
It now says ex daycare worker.
Yep. Already.
I'm sorry, it's not. Oh my god, that's a horrible mask.
Right? I thought, when I first saw the screenshot of it, I thought it was like a scream mask, but no.
No, it's
not
worse.
A scream mask.
It looks like one of those scary Japanese people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? The scary Japanese ghosts.
Yes. Yeah, and these kids were about 3 or 4 years old, so they were losing their shit.
Also, judging by how little the kids look, they look like they're about 2. So I work with the 3s and 4s, pre-K.
Oh, so you think it's younger?
So these look younger than the kids that I deal with. These look very young, like toddlers. Oh poor babies.
Right. Yeah. Well, my brother was the first one
to do that.
Right. Oh my god. So my brother was the first one who brought this to me, and I was like, I gotta look this up because it's of course, it's October, so spooky season. And people, I don't know what they were thinking with trying to scare little kids, especially with this horror mask. No, absolutely not. But this happened in Mississippi. And they are facing possible prison time. So
now, how many people were involved in it? Was it just the lady in the video?
No.
Or were they also bringing in the lady who filmed it and posted it?
It's saying 4 women.
Okay.
That are involved in this. I don't see all their names. I see 3 of the. No, never mind. I got it. Wait, no, I'm seeing 5 now. Hold on a sec. Okay. But I don't have their first names. You got McCandles, you got Kilburn, Newman, Shelton, and Hudson. So there are apparently 5 women, 4 women.
It sounds like the entire staff.
Yeah. 4 women are facing 3 counts of child abuse, and I'm not sure what's going on with the extra woman in here. But yeah,
yep. I just looked at it. TMZ said 2-year-olds. Yep, I was right. They look because it's like the tiny tables.
Yeah, yeah.
It's wild. The one lady, guess her name is Caitlin Johnson. Her 2-year-old was in the video, and she talked to TMZ. Oh yeah, I'm looking at mugshots.
Yep,
all 5 of them.
Yep. I guess one is facing misdemeanor charges. A failure to report the abuse, and I guess simple assault. So yeah,
the mom says she's not even considering filing a lawsuit because she thinks they won't ever get hired again, and they won't be able to pay the damages.
Absolutely not. Oh my god, so terrible. It's one thing to okay, for Halloween, for trick or treat around our area, trick or treat is Halloween. So
right, us here too.
Yeah, I was like, you know what would be funny and cool for me to do was like, how people like dress up as like a scarecrow or something and sit out on the porch and just have like a candy bowl in their lap and waiting for kids to come and try to grab something, and then you just
Right,
scare
there's a
them.
difference from like, because I remember that, and you could like just sit up, and that's enough to scare them. But she
Yeah,
was like going around screaming at the kids, and apparently the
yeah.
mom on TMZ, like I saw a little, I clicked away from it just now, but she said that her son was like potty trained, and now he's not,
Oh my God,
and
no!
he's not like sleeping through the night, and I'm like, you just undid months of hard work. This
At
kid's now
least,
afraid
damn.
to live.
Oh my God, yeah. They definitely traumatized those children.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
it's weird. I don't know why anybody thought that was okay.
yeah,
But they're right,
but
though. They probably won't ever be allowed to work in childcare ever again.
absolutely not. And hopefully they do see some type
Some
of
jail time.
yeah, because that's unacceptable. But yeah, that's what I got.
Well, and now to the main event. I'm not going to be talking about one killer today. Well, technically, I guess I'm going to be talking about one killer in the midst of the total story. But this is more than likely going to go up on Halloween. And so I have been very interested lately in the conversation around candy and murder. And, well, if you're listening and you're probably a millennial or Gen X, I'm sure your parents were like, we gotta wait to eat our candy until we can get home and check it, or some variation of that when we were young. Because when I grew up, we grew up with the fear that someone was going to poison or put razor blades or drugs or broken glass in your candy. And now in like 2022, people are just openly mocking this. Like I've seen dozens of posts on my timeline with people showing like actually, there was a really great one that somebody found. They posted a picture of like a Snickers that was broken, and then in it was a piece of paper that said, "We've been trying to contact you about your extended car warranty." Right now in our modern era, this is just kind of comical because there are a couple things that people know. One, drugs are expensive and nobody's giving those out for free.
Yeah, right.
But there's some very real life situations that happened, and we're going to talk about some of those today. And essentially how what started as an urban legend based on the teeniest, tiniest amount of truth turned into massive hysteria. Because I remember like the police posting booby trapped candy hauls. And it would
Oh
be like, they would have like
yes.
on the nightly news, like a whole table full of candy with stuff. And in my head, I'm like, did y'all just make this up?
They had to have because I don't
Y'all were
think
just lying? Because every year brought more reports, but nobody ever died. So, of course, the question was, why in the world? Because at the height of the mass hysteria, like 60% of parents believed that their kids were going to get hurt by candy. So why did we think this, right? Well, the first one that I could really find that I had a lot of information about, well, not even a lot of information, it was a small blurb in a newspaper in California, was a dentist who gave out candy-coated laxatives to trick-or-treaters in 1959. And of course, he did that because he was trying to teach them a lesson. And he was charged with outrage of public decency and the unlawful dispensing of drugs.
it's not like poison. Like it's like poisoning too.
Yeah, I mean, you eat a piece of candy and then you feel terrible. Also, laxatives sometimes do a number on people's systems.
Mm-hmm.
So the next big one happens in Long Island, New York. It's Halloween 1964. This takes place at the home of housewife Helen Fail. and it's literally Pfeil. So I don't know if I'm saying it's feel or fail, but I think fail is funny because she did fail in this situation. Helen was giving out candy on Salem Ridge Road, and two young teens, Elise Drucker and her sister Irene, and another school friend, stopped at Helen's house to get candy. And Helen kind of teased them and was like, "Aren't you a little old to be trick-or-treating?" You know? But Helen was a mom herself to a teenager, and it seemed like harmless ribbing as she dropped like a handful of what looked like candy into the teens' pillowcases. They all went back to the Drucker residence, and when they opened the bag, they found these weird napkins. Like they were like tied, like a napkin was tied around it, and it was looked like a bottle cap that had the poison symbol on the bottom of it.
Oh my God.
Those are called ant buttons, and they are actually ant poison that you sit out around your house so the ants eat it and die. Also, what she dropped in their bags were steel wool pads and dog biscuits. So Elise and Irene's mom are like, there's actual poison in this bag. And the police go to Helen, and she's kind of blasé about the whole thing. She's like, I told them it was a joke, and obviously the poison was labeled poison. I just thought they were too old to be out anyway, and no one really got hurt. And the police were like, there's potential someone could have gotten hurt.
Absolutely. They could have not looked at the stupid label that you had on there and definitely try to eat that.
Yeah. So she got charged and pled guilty to endangering children, and she received a suspended sentence. Unfortunately for Elise Drucker, she told the New York Times that even like they talked to her later, like 50 years later, she said she never wore a costume or did anything Halloween related ever again. It really soured her to the holiday.
Damn. That sucks.
Now, yeah. Right after this, newspapers in Detroit reported that people had given out live-filled bubblegum, and in Philadelphia, they reported that rat poison was given out. Neither of these events were proven. Just making stuff up.
Okay.
It is amazing how many articles in major newspapers, complete bull. Also, in 1970, the New York Times runs an article about this that's also baseless. Listen to the headline for this, though. It's, "Those Halloween goodies that children collect this weekend on their rounds of trick-or-treating may bring them more horror than happiness." And the article just listed potential ways that candy could be tampered with.
But
so it was
no
just
proof.
like baiting people.
Right. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Nothing. Now, the next one is also the biggest. And I'm sure you know who I'm going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you some background into what happened with Ronald Clark O'Brien. Most true crime people do know about him. His name, they called him the man who killed Halloween. This was Halloween 1974. Ronald was 30 years old. He was married to his wife, Daneen. They lived in Deer Park, Texas, with their son, Timothy, who was 8, and Elizabeth, who was 5. Ronald was an optician at Texas State Optical in Sharptown, Houston. He was also a deacon at the Second Baptist Church, and he sang in the choir and ran the local bus program for parishioners that needed ride to church events. They were your average middle-class family in the suburbs of Houston. Ronald's pastor described him as a good Christian man and an above-average father. Now, of course, that was the surface, and only his wife really knew what was going on in his life, which was that Ronald always had trouble keeping jobs. And at the time of this crime, he was on job 21 in the past 10 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, meaning he got fired or was allowed to resign on average 2 times a year. Mm-hmm. And I say allowed to resign because he was constantly getting in trouble for either negligence on the job or just outright fraud. At the time he got arrested, the optician's office were investigating him for stealing money. Now, at this optician's job, Ronald made about $150 a week. And in today's money, that's about $900, which is an okay amount of money if you live by yourself and you don't have a car or any major responsibilities. But if you got 2 kids and a wife, and like a mortgage or rent, $900 a week isn't doing it for you. It barely covered their food and rent. We know that Ronald's car was about to be repossessed. He had defaulted on several loans, and they were valued up to nearly $100,000. So obviously, you know where we're going with this. Mm-hmm. Halloween 1974 in Texas is rainy. Ronald had both his kids, and their name were Jim Bates and his 2 kids. The group decided to go trick-or-treating in Pasadena, Texas, in hopes of getting more goodies. You know, Pasadena is a slightly nicer area. The night starts out normal. They come across a house with the lights off. The kids ring the bell a couple times, and then they move on. Ronald's like, I'm going to, see if this person's here. And he catches up with them a couple houses later, and in his hands, he's holding these absolutely massive, they are 21-inch Pixie Sticks tubes of candy. And for anyone who's probably not from the U.S., Pixie Sticks are legitimately sugar in a tube, lightly flavored. There is no reason why we were allowed to eat these as children. It is just straight, like it's more than other candy, straight sugar.
Yes, it is.
He gives one to each of the kids, and then he sees another neighborhood kid from his church and gives him one too. So there are 5 of these tubes out there. Now, like most parents, when the night's over, Ronald's like, everyone can have one piece of candy before bed. Neither Timothy nor his sister were very interested in the giant Pixie Sticks, but Ronald kind of forced Timothy to pick it. The powdered sugar was stuck in the straw, which if you've had a Pixie Stick, that's weird. That's suspicious.
Mm-hmm. Why is it already stuck? It's supposed to be stuck when I have it.
Right. It shouldn't. It should move freely through. Well, immediately after eating a mouthful, Timothy's like, this is gross. And so Ronald gets him a glass of Kool-Aid to wash it down and then puts Timothy to bed. Timothy is dead within the hour. I'm going to say it takes a special kind of horrible to do what Ronald did next. Because before he was even back in his own bedroom, his son was crying for his father and saying his stomach hurt. And pretty much he held his son while the boy convulsed, vomited, and gasped for air before just falling limp in the bathroom. He finally called 911, and the ambulance rushed him to the hospital where he was dead on arrival. Now, by sheer coincidence, Harris County prosecutor Mike Hinton was working that night at police intake. So he was picking up the phone calls that were coming in, and he got a phone call from Pasadena about a dead child. So Mike jumps into action and calls Dr. Joseph. Okay, his name is spelled Jachimczyk. It's too many consonants, y'all. Jachimczyk. But Jachimczyk is the chief medical examiner in Harris County. So Mike explains the situation to Dr. Joseph, and the doctor immediately says, what does his breath smell like? And so Mike calls the morgue and asks them, and they're like, it smells like almonds. So then Mike calls Dr. Joseph back, and Dr. Joseph goes, that's cyanide poisoning. So the following morning, the medical exam, he's absolutely 100% right. The autopsy the following morning confirms that not only was it cyanide, but he had consumed so much that it was enough to kill 2 adult men, people like 400-pound kind of person. Now, Ronald handed over his son's candy immediately to the police. They tested it, and it was the Pixie Sticks tube, full of poison from all of it, just poison. So Ronald immediately calls his neighbor Jim, and he's like, oh, I hope your kids didn't eat any. The police look at the thing, and they're like, this has very obviously been tampered with. It looks like it's been opened and stapled back together with like a stapler. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, they're like, well, how many did you get from that house? And he's like, well, they gave me like 5 of them. So I gave one to each of my kids and one to a kid we knew from church. And so the police kind of rushed to the other family's house, and they literally found the boy asleep holding the tube in his hand.
Oh, my God.
He hadn't been strong enough to open up the staples, which ultimately saved his life. So that same day, it's only November 1st right now, the police take Ronald back to the area where they trick-or-treated, and they're like, so where did you get it from? And he's like, oh, I don't remember. He's like, this guy was like standing in the shadows of the front porch. I don't really remember what he looks like. The investigators are immediately kind of suspicious. And they let him go home, but like there's, they decide to pull him again, and they're like, okay, so you're being kind of
shady.
Yeah, shady about this. Where did you find it? Where was the guy at the house? You are keeping us from finding your son's killer. This time, he points to the house. Now, the man in the house wasn't there, so the police showed up at his job. He worked at the airport. They arrested him in front of his fellow employees. He told the police he'd been working that night, and his wife and daughter had run out of candy early, which is why the lights were shut off. Now, Mike Hinton was already feeling like Ronald's story was bogus, but this really solidified it for him. Not to mention Ronald's being weird. Like, the day of his son's funeral, he gets into a fight with the family because he had written some song for Timothy, and it was going to be like played on like the nightly news after the funeral, and his family didn't want to stay up and watch it with him.
Oh my God, come on.
Mike was suspicious, but it was just a hunch, and it wasn't his investigation. So he goes back to teaching at the Pasadena Police Academy, and he lets the police do their work. He's the prosecutor. He can't really have any part of this because ultimately he's going to have to prosecute this once the information comes in. In the meantime, parents in Deer Park are in a total panic. People are just dropping off candy at the local police stations. They're just, here, have it. It's fine. We'll buy our kids some other candy. We don't care. 6 days after Timothy is murdered, the police show up at Ronald's door with a search warrant and an arrest warrant. Now, the reason why is over the course of those 6 days, they discovered that Ronald had taken out a life insurance policy on both of his kids in January for $10,000 apiece. And then September, so a month before this, he had taken out 2 additional policies, each for $20,000 for both kids.
What the hell?
The police already knew about the debt, but then while they were searching through his house, they find like adding machine tape with the exact amount of his bills, and it was way more than Ronald was letting on that he actually owed. And they were also suspicious when they learned that on November 1st, while he's still, sad dad, he called the insurers to learn about when he could get that $30,000. And not like he waited the whole day. Like, he woke up and was ready to call them the moment they opened at 9 a.m. to talk to them about this, which is wild. Well, yesterday my son died, so when can I get the 30 grand for his life?
When can y'all pay me?
It's a little much. And on that adding machine tape was listed the deductions of how much debt he had once all the life insurance payouts were collected. The search warrant also led to a pair of plastic scissors that had a plastic residue that they had found on the candy tubes. And that was enough to hold him for questioning. They later also found on him a pocket knife that had cyanide residue on it too. They also learned he was at community college, and they interviewed his professor and some other students who told the police that he would ask weird questions like, what's more lethal, cyanide or another type of poison? A man who worked for a chemical company in Houston called the police and said he remembered a man who had come by looking to buy cyanide and got upset that he could only buy 5 pounds. That's so much.
I was about to say, why would you need more?
Were you going to kill everybody? Your wife too?
Oh my God.
It's just so much. But he told the police, he was like, the man had dark hair and glasses. And most importantly, he wore like a beige or like almost light blue smock that he said looked like a doctor, which was the uniform that Ronald wore to the optician's office. Also, he did have dark hair and wore glasses. As the police called other chemical companies, they all had suspiciously received these weird phone calls from a guy who had given his name, but he asked weird questions like, how much cyanide does it take to kill a man?
Not fucking 5 pounds, I'll tell you that.
Not at all. That wasn't definitive proof, though, because the man couldn't positively ID Ronald, and this was decades before DNA evidence was being used. Ronald put in a not guilty plea, and the state of Texas proceeded with their case against him. Now, Clyde DeWitt, who is the former assistant district attorney in Houston, would later tell the press, I'm not able to imagine a crime more reprehensible than someone killing his own child for money. Now, what DeWitt didn't know then, and what we know now, thanks to forensic psychology, is that poisoners are a group of killers who lack pretty much any empathy. We've learned this based on the crimes and how poisoning is done, usually in a very cold, calculating, and strategic way. A forensic psychologist named Joni Johnston did an interview with A&E True Crime, and she said that poisoning is an instrument for someone who is kind of cunning and sneaky, not somebody who is going to be physically or verbally aggressive. They are more likely to be polite behind the scenes, and as a result, they tend to fool people. This is a relevant quote because that is exactly what Ronald does with the police and even at his trial, which starts on May 5th, 1975 in Houston. There's a chemist who was friends with the Clark family O'Brien family. And the chemist testified that Ronald would bother him with a lot of questions about killing people with poison, cyanide, and he said that he felt Ronald had an unusual interest in the subject. Ronald's sister-in-law testified about how Ronald talked about the insurance payout on the day of his son's funeral. And to add insult to injury, he didn't even say he was going to pay off his debts. He told the family he was going to take a long vacation and buy some things. Now, the smoking gun was Daneen, Ronald's wife, who told the jury that it was not Timothy's choice to eat the giant pixie stick. She told the jury that her son had wanted a different candy, and Ronald pretty much forced him to eat it, even though, like, her son said it was nasty. Through all of this, Ronald maintains his innocence, and Ronald's defense team decides to use the decades-old urban legend about poisoned Halloween candy, something which wasn't really even in the collective consciousness of the nation yet. And in fact, this trial made it relevant. Across the U.S., this trial is being reported on daily for the entire month that they deliberate, and the press call him the Candyman. Now, on June 3rd, 1975, the trial wraps up, jury goes to deliberate, and it takes 46 minutes for them to return with a with a guilty verdict. And they went all the way. Guilty for capital murder, as well as 4 counts of attempted murder for each pixie stick he gave to a child that night who didn't die. And then the judge was just like, well, since you've decided on capital murder, we need you to deliberate on how he should die. They came back from that one 71 minutes later with death by electrocution. Within days of the verdict, Daneen files for divorce. She would later remarry, and her new husband adopted Elizabeth as his own. Ronald spent the next 9 years in the Ellis unit in Huntsville, Texas. Reverend Carol Pickett, who worked as a chaplain for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, would later tell the press that Ronald was shunned by all the other inmates. They hated him, and he had no friends in prison. In fact, the prisoners actually requested, like, they put in a formal requests to have an organized demonstration on Ronald's execution date as a sort of fuck this guy, we hate him.
Love it.
One of the things that made the inmates mad was that he wouldn't just go to his fate with dignity. He was originally supposed to be executed on August 8th, 1980. His attorney got a stay of execution for him. They rescheduled it for May 25th, 1982. It got postponed. So Judge Michael McSpadden scheduled it October 31st, 1982, on the 8th anniversary of his crime when his son would have been 16. He even offered to walk Ronald to the execution. This was going to be the first lethal injection for the first time in Texas, but the Supreme Court stopped it because there were still arguments about how humane lethal injection was, which gave his attorney enough time to get another stay of execution. They schedule it for a fourth time, March 31st, 1984. His lawyer files a document saying lethal injection is cruel and unusual punishment. March 28th, a judge rejects it. Yeah, it's going to go according to plan. They got him a little last meal, T-bone steak, some French fries and ketchup, corn, sweet peas, lettuce, tomato. He had a salad with French dressing, some iced tea with a sweetener, and a Boston cream pie. And then March 30th, 1984, he walked to his execution just before midnight. A crowd of about 300 people outside the prison threw candy at the prison and also at the anti-death penalty demonstrators, and they screamed trick or treat. Ronald's final words were, "What is about to transpire in a few moments is wrong. However, we as human beings do make mistakes and errors. The execution is one of those wrongs, yet doesn't mean our whole system of justice is wrong. Therefore, I would forgive all who have taken part in any way in my death. Also, to anyone I have offended in any way during my 39 years, I pray and ask your forgiveness, just as I forgive anyone who has offended me in any way. And I pray and ask God's forgiveness for all of us, respectively, as human beings. To my loved ones, I extend my undying love. To those close to me, know in your hearts I love you one and all. God bless you all, and may God's best blessings be always yours. Ronald C. O'Brien. P.S. During my time here, I have been treated well by all TDC personnel." And he was executed shortly after midnight. Ronald was buried in Forest Park East Cemetery in Webster, Texas. Absolutely nowhere near his son, who was buried in Houston. Now, another interesting thing happens, right? While Ronald is trying to avoid the death penalty, one of the biggest medical tampering cases hits the United States. And it is a big deal. That is the 1982 Chicago Tylenol murders, which were first reported in September of 1982, and they lasted between September 82 and October 1982. There were 7 people who died when Tylenol capsules were replaced with potassium cyanide. What made these events frightening is that the deaths didn't all happen in the same place. The first one was September 29th, and her name was Mary Kellerman. She lived in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, and she was 12 years old. And then the next 3 all happened in Arlington Heights, which is about 7 miles south of where Mary died. That was Adam Janis, who was 27, his brother Stanley, who was 25, and his sister-in-law Teresa, who was 19. They all got their Tylenol from a different store. And then a few days after that, Mary McFarland, who was 31, of Elmhurst, and then Paula Prince, 35, of Chicago, and Mary Reiner of Winfield, she was 27. They all died. So these are all people in different cities. They very much realized that every person had taken Tylenol before they died. They all test these cyanides found to be in the bottles. They release a warning to the people of Chicago not to take any Tylenol. They also actually drove a car around the metropolitan area, like the whole metropolitan area of Chicago, just over the speakers saying, "Throw out your Tylenol." So, of course, the police and the FDA go to Johnson & Johnson. They recall all the bottles in those stores, and they discover that they were across the multiple stores. They were manufactured in 2 different states, Pennsylvania and Texas, making it highly unlikely that this was a manufacturer error.
Right.
So the police hypothesized that somebody must have bought a bunch of Tylenol bottles, took them home, replaced some of the capsules, and then went and put them back on the shelves. Johnson & Johnson goes into total like protection mode of the brand. They recall bottles in hospitals. They stop selling Tylenol at all. And then while this is going on somebody in California finds strychnine in other Tylenol bottles. So at this point, they do a full recall on October 5th, 1982. That's 31 million bottles with a retail value of about $100 million in the 80s, which is about $281 million today.
Oh my God.
They immediately switch over to a solid tab formula, and they offer any customer who just wants to feel safe anywhere in the entire country, we will replace your capsule bottle with tabs. They never find out who does this. Now, there was one guy who tried to take advantage. His name was James Williams Lewis. And he sent a letter to J&J trying to extort them for $1 million and ended up going to prison for 10 years. He did it because he said they fired his wife and he just was trying to get a little extra money because he's mad at them. For about 30 years, though, on the books, they blamed the Tylenol murders on James William Lewis. And he's like, no, I did not do that. And both he and his wife actually submitted DNA evidence to the FBI to prove that he's a liar, but he's not a killer. Right. They also at one point suspected a man named Roger Arnold, who was so like stressed because of the negative press when they listed him as a person of interest that he pretty much had a nervous breakdown and he tried to kill the owner of a bar the following summer. He did not kill the owner of the bar. He killed a man who looked similar, named John Stanish, and he served 15 years for that, and later openly spoke about how he regretted killing an innocent person. In May of 1988, Lori Dan went on a poisoning spree around Winnetka, Illinois, and they thought he could be a suspect, but he was just responsible for the ones in Winnetka. The FBI is actually still trying to figure out who did this crime. As recent as 2011, they were testing DNA from other cases like Ted Kaczynski because the first 4 Unabomber crimes happened in Chicago from 1978 to 1980 when Ted lived in the suburbs of Chicago with his parents. Mm-hmm. So this crime has America in a chokehold. And then what made it even worse was that all of a sudden more copycat crimes started popping up. They became so rampant that this is why we now have induction seals on over-the-counter medication and tamper-proof packaging that's hard as hell to open because of these copycat crimes. Mm-hmm. Also, product tampering is now a federal crime. Nice. The pharmaceutical industry moved away from capsules for a very long time, and the FDA continues to tweak the regulations around product tampering as new, more creative ways to tamper with things are discovered. Now, we're only in the 80s right now, right? Halloween. 1982 Halloween. The people are still reminiscent of what happened with Ronald Clark O'Brien, right? Now we've got this case in California. People are terrified. Candy sales go down 20% across the entire nation. What happens next is a lot of children dying by accident who it gets blamed on candy. So I'm going to give you a couple. There's a lot of them, but I'm going to give you a couple. So in 1970, this kid named Kevin Tostin was 5 years old, and he was from Detroit. He died after finding and eating his uncle's heroin.
Oh.
Yep. The family attempted to protect the uncle by claiming the drug must have been sprinkled on the kid's Halloween candy.
Oh, my God.
Yep. 1978, Patrick Widerhold was a 2-year-old boy from Flint, Michigan, who died after eating his Halloween candy. The press was like, it's the candy, strangers. But after toxicology tests were done, there was no evidence of poison, and they were like, he just died.
Maybe he was allergic to something.
Maybe. In 1982, the police of Redford Township near Detroit issue a statement after a kid gets ill and his doctor misread lab results and went public with charges of cyanide poisoning and doctored Halloween candy. The police do tests. They're like, there's no poison here. So the doctor was just wrong. In 1990, Ariel Katz was a 7-year-old girl in Santa Monica, California. She died while she was trick-or-treating, and early press reports blamed poison candy, even though her parents told the police that she had a congenital heart defect. She had an enlarged heart, which was her actual cause of death. 1991, Washington, D.C., 31-year-old Kevin Michael Cherry of Montgomery County has heart failure after eating some of his child's Halloween candy. And on November 2nd, the Washington Times tells parents to dump their kids' candies before they even wait for the autopsy. 1994, an unnamed 3-year-old in New Britain, Connecticut is diagnosed as suffering from cocaine poisoning. Even though he was sick earlier in the day and he had a bad habit of putting anything he found in his mouth, they blame the candy, which of course brings media hysteria. More than a week later, the local police announced there was no cocaine or any other drugs in that boy's candy bag. More than likely, he picked up something that he shouldn't have and put in his mouth.
Mm-hmm. As children are to do.
Exactly. 1996, 7-year-old Ferdinand Seguig of San Jose, California, collapses after eating candy and cookies he was given while he was trick-or-treating. They do a urine analysis at the hospital, which reveals cocaine. Subsequent tests done by an outside lab come back negative, and it's concluded that the initial test results were just wrong. This conclusion was reached a day after the media had already picked up the story. Yup. 2001, a 4-year-old girl in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, dies after eating Halloween candy. There is no evidence she died of poison candy. She actually died from a streptococcus infection. So here's one of, so this one is different. So have you heard of drugs being in your kids' candy?
Of course.
That happened, but not because of the reasons why we thought. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell you, it's 2000, Hercules, California. Trick-or-treaters come home and the kids open up these Snickers bars and they have little baggies of marijuana inside of them.
Oh my God. The meme is coming true.
So parents report to the police. The house where the candy came from is quickly found. The homeowners are super confused. When the police investigate, they're like, okay, the homeowners had no idea that they accidentally handed out drugs. So here's how this happened. The homeowner worked for the post office. And most locations have something called a dead letter office, which is where all of the packages with bad postage or not enough postage go, right? The homeowner had been tasked with getting rid of like a bunch of canned goods and like what looked like bags of candy that had been shipped. And so he looks at it and he's like, this is perfectly good candy. And he takes it home and gives it to his wife to hand out to trick-or-treaters.
Hell yeah.
In fact, he didn't know that it wasn't a real bag of Snickers. Somebody tried to cleverly mail drugs across the country.
I mean,
and pretend it was a Snickers bag, so that it wouldn't get like searched or X-rayed.
That's a really smart way of doing it, but damn, terrible time of the year to do it.
The problem is the media doesn't often follow up on these cases. A lot of the digging that I had to do here was like you find the first story and it's very sensationalized, right? But they don't follow up afterward. So people just remembered that in California in 2000, weed was in kids' bags. And they never looked into it any further than that. In fact, well, okay, so I'm going to say this. The company said that their image was tarnished, but when you find out what this company is, okay. So it's October 8th, 1988, and the New York Times reports that traces of strychnine are found in a box of sun-kissed Fun Fruits dinosaurs, and they had been purchased on September 23rd in a New Jersey grocery store. The candies had like a fine white powder, which is what strychnine looks like. Mm-hmm. So they took it to a state lab. And that's kind of where the New York Times initially ends their story. The lab results come back a week later, proving that it was cornstarch, which anybody who has made homemade gummies would know. That's how you keep them from sticking together. Right. Now, the New York Times did print an updated version of this story on October 14th, 1988, but the company, Thomas J. Lipton Incorporated, had destroyed 9,400 cases of the product. The company stated that the negativity had a huge impact on their image. Now, you might know Thomas J. Lipton Incorporated as one of the largest tea makers in the world.
Yes,
who made
Lipton.
about $1.6 billion in tea last year and have 50% of the market share. So they obviously recovered. Maybe they don't sell fruit gummies anymore, but they sell enough tea.
They sure as hell do.
I didn't realize they have 50% of the market share of tea sales. I didn't know that. So like I said, even though both Thomas J. Lipton and Johnson & Johnson recovered, the media's incessant need to sort of stay ahead of stories, whether those stories are true or not, is pretty damaging.
Yeah, they don't have all the information. They just want to cover something.
And there's definitely these sensational headlines stay with people much longer after the cases are found out to be hoaxes or just mistaken poisonings. Mm-hmm. Now, there have been journalists who have been analyzing a lot of these news stories over the last 70 years, and most of them end up being pranks. One of the bigger studies was done in 1985. A man by the name of Joel Best, he was a sociologist at the University of Delaware, pretty much spent a big chunk of his career looking at candy tampering cases from 1958 to 1983. And he found that of those cases that he was able to confirm were actual candy tampering, were about 90 of them. None of them were random attempts to hurt kids. 78 were outright pranks. 5 were adults who attempted to kill children to get financial compensation. Those were Timothy O'Brien and Kevin Tostin, and the rest were just kids trying to get attention. One of the cases, it's actually really funny. A kid brought an apple to his parents and was like, I think there's poison on this. And he had eaten half the apple, and there was poison on the other half of the apple, but he had dipped it in. He had done that.
What, the kid?
Yes.
Are you serious? What the hell?
Listen, children are a mess.
They are a mess. My God.
One thing we can absolutely say, kids are a friggin' mess. Mm-hmm. And the pranks were things like people inserting needles or razor blades into a friend's candy because they had heard the myths. And they were like, oh, this is going to be so funny.
Let me tell you
They're just not realizing they're about to cause community-wide panic.
Yeah, that's not funny. Not at all.
No. Joel Best isn't the only person to look into this, but his coverage of it actually came out during the height of candy hysteria, the mid-'80s. And a lot of other people have written about it since then, But for people in our age range, millennials, and also some younger Gen X, and also sometimes Gen Z, we kind of now make fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, like I said, drugs are expensive. No one's handing them out for free. It's really easy, as you can see, from the police to track down wherever tainted candy actually came from. They
Absolutely.
very quickly can zero in on which house it came from based on asking people questions about it. So Ronald, Clark O'Brien was just kind of a dummy.
Yeah.
But there aren't even that many people who tried to kill their kids with candy. So thankfully, that's good. One thing, though, interesting is that Joel Best thinks that we've sort of shifted our fear culturally from the supernatural or satanic, because the 80s had the satanic panic, right, to real monsters like that in true crime. His direct quote is, "We don't believe in ghosts and goblins. We believe in criminals." We have revised what the Halloween menace is, from the homicidal maniac, like in slasher movies, to a person so crazy he poisons the candy of strangers. And I honestly think he's right. Culturally, Americans seem to subsist off of the idea of constantly having a boogeyman. We got to be worried about something, be it religious, supernatural, a socioeconomic group that we think is destroying the country, a racist opinion of a marginalized community. Sometimes all of the above at the same time. But we have this weird space within our country where many of us are safe, but we fear our communities. And I'm really not sure why we're like this, and that's probably a conversation for a later date. But for some Americans, the fear of the stranger who lurks just outside of your peripheral seeking to harm your family is a boogeyman who is palatable, someone you can prepare for, and ultimately protect your family from. We know that the reality is very different, but in a weird way, looking at the world like this makes people feel safe, because the truth of the matter is that we are most likely to be hurt by the people we know and love. And I don't know if people can come to terms with that reality. Like, if it's just too hard for you to look at the people around you and go, one of these people might kill me. So instead, we fixate on all of these different boogeymen. Mm-hmm. And for Halloween and the candy giving time, the boogeyman is the random person in your community who's definitely trying to get your kid hooked on drugs. Because he just got all that money.
He got all that extra...
All that extra drug money. He's just got all that time to put needles inside tiny Snickers bars or things of that nature. But it's very interesting. But that's all I got for you today. That's my time spent looking up all the different candy crimes in America. And it's good that we're not so crazy about it now. I do still see some news articles about it, though.
Yeah, I've seen a few already this year about drugs and candy and stuff.
Every once in a while, people are like, "Oh, you gotta make sure you double check your kid's candy," and I'm like, "Y'all just made me throw out a perfectly good piece of candy because it got opened in the bag while I was dragging the bag down the street." Because listen, the first couple times you go trick or treat and you carry that cute little pail, and then you get to be like 10 and you just take a pillowcase and call it a day.
Damn right.
But what do you have for us today, Brian?
Okay. So today I'm going to keep up with what I did for the last episode. I'm going to hit you with a horror Halloween origin story / history, and then I'm going to add a little cryptid to the end of the episode.
All right.
Because this is Halloween, and we stay in the spooky season, right? Okay. So, Brittany, are you ready for trick-or-treat night? You got your candy, you got your decorations, you got the whole shebang going on.
We didn't really do a whole lot, but we do have a bag of candy.
Awesome. Is it chocolate? Is it just like regular candy? You know, people, you got their nut allergies, chocolate allergies. Unfortunately, chocolate allergies are a thing.
Oof. Yeah, one of my cousins used to try and sneak chocolate, and it was always a problem.
Yeah. I mean, me, myself, I'm definitely going to have my pennies and my raisins ready for these kids.
You giving out pennies like you're a 75-year-old grandma?
Oh, yes. Pennies, raisins, and toothbrushes.
I'm pretty sure we have Milky Ways, like a bag of Milky Ways that we're going to be handing out.
Oh, my God.
I don't know. Glitch went to the store today and grabbed some candy, so.
Yeah, I gotta actually go tomorrow and make sure I got candy. I gotta make sure I got candy for.
Well, the thing is, we live like in the middle of downtown, so I don't even know if kids are gonna come by. So that's why we only grabbed like 2 bags. But I'm wearing a costume to work on Monday, so I guess I just won't take it off because I'm just gonna wear that.
Yeah, no, the area you're in right now, yeah, a lot of kids do walk that street.
Do they? I'm so excited. I'm going to get more candy then. Thank you for telling me.
No problem.
Because you grew up here.
Yeah, I live right up the street from where you're at right now. But yeah, yeah, a lot of kids
Yay,
do walk
I'm going
that
to tell
street.
her so we can buy more candy. We're going to hang out on the porch from 6 to 8. Yeah.
Good shit. But yeah, I bet there's one Halloween treat you don't have ready, and if you do, look at you for covering all your bases.
Okay.
So, have you heard of a soul cake before?
People put the word soul in front of a lot of things. I don't think I've heard about it in this context, though.
This is true. Okay.
Soul ties, soul blah, blah.
Well, the soul cake.
What's
actually,
a soul cake, though?
They come with like the beginning of, I guess, trick or treating, like very beginning, like not. It wasn't even trick or treating. It wasn't even called Halloween at this time.
Oh, back when it was like pagan stuff.
It was like All Souls Day, which was actually the day after Halloween. Actually, no.
Right.
Also,
well, for some people,
no. Okay.
All Saints
All
Day
Saints
or
Day.
All Souls Day?
All Saints Day is the day after Halloween, and All Souls Day is the day after that.
Oh, I'm so confused then.
Yeah, but
listen, that's some Christian stuff, and you know I haven't kept up with that since high school.
I know. But a soul cake is basically just, I mean, it could be like a cookie, it could be a biscuit. It like there are different types of recipes for this certain treat that was given out on these days. It's like they came about like the 19th century, so like you said, it's just something easy.
So why?
Yeah, why?
Yes.
Well, so. Well, there's a song that goes along with this, actually.
Really?
There's a song that goes along with this. I'm just going to sing like the chorus of it. I'm not even going to sing it. I'm just going to read it. It says, a soul cake. Please, good missus, a soul cake. An apple, a pear, a plum, or a cherry. Any good thing to make us all merry. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him who made us all.
Okay.
So, yeah, this was something, you know how, with Christmas, you have your carolers and stuff like that. Well, during All Saints Day, All Souls Day, Halloween at that time, they had people that would come around, whether they be homeless people or beggars, and they would, sing the song. They do these carols, and the people of the house they normally would have a soul cake, and what the soul cakes represented was for one person, for one soul cake, they get a soul. You know what I mean? Soul cake. Um, so a lot of people would just go around and do these carols, prayers, stuff like that. And it's actually called souling. I knew.
Okay, so here's my question, right? You said
Yes,
this came
ma'am.
about in like the 19th century.
Yes.
So I'm guessing they probably don't have too many decorations. Like I
You,
feel like the 1800s we didn't have like pretty cakes.
no, they were basic ass cakes that you. They're not even like they're basically like
No, like was there
cookie
even icing?
biscuits. No, nothing on top of it. Is just a basic biscuit looking cookie thing.
No, see, it's not a cake. It can't. It's not a cake with no icing. It's
Look,
just it's a biscuit.
it had
Like
sugar,
is that
flour,
what they call
eggs.
the cookies in New England? Biscuits.
Biscuits, yeah.
Yeah, it's a biscuit.
Yeah. They
I'm gonna
are
look it up now.
cakes, I guess. But yeah, like I said, there was a song that was created. That was only a chorus of what I read. So I'd say after this, you know what mummers are, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, excellent. So, for anybody who doesn't know what mummers are, they're like entertainers, basically actors who go out in the streets. They dance, they perform, they wear costumes. Sounds familiar, right? Something.
The reason why I said yeah so excitedly is because Philadelphia.
Yeah, I
And
know the Mummers Parade.
I had and wore an authentic Mummers costume every Halloween for like 4 years.
That's
My
awesome.
aunt got it for me. My Aunt Jean got it for me, and I loved it. And I didn't care that nobody knew what it was because I knew what it was.
That's all that matters.
But yeah, like I guess back in like the 18th century, they were just like working class street performers.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, talk about the cool. Like they look so cool. I don't know if they're like cool people now, but I know they look cool.
Yeah. So modern day trick or treaters are thought of as being like descendants of these mummers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love that actually.
Yeah, right. It's so cool. And they would not only come out, of course, for Halloween, but they come out for other special like times of the year, Christmas, All Souls Day,
Right.
stuff like that.
That's when the Mummers Parade is. I think it's a New Year's Day in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So that's a big celebration.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they would just go to, they knew where, like, trick-or-treaters nowadays, they go to that one person's house, they know they got those those king-size candy bars, and the mummers would go to the rich people's houses, they know we're rich, and they go perform there. Yep, and, they get food, they get something to drink, they might get a gift for their performance out there, you never know. But yeah, that like when I read about the mummers, I was like, oh, that's awesome. They just go out there, like it's definitely trick or treating.
Okay, so I've Googled what these cakes look like, and one, they're ugly, and two, why do they have X's on them? You have that in your notes?
Yeah, no, I don't know why they have X's on them. That's the thing. Some of them are like they're different recipes for making them. Some of them say to do certain things with them, put some certain things in it, make it a certain way, make it fluffy. Some of them are fluffier than a cookie, and some of them are like flat like a damn biscuit. Or like, God, or
okay,
flat
I will
like
say, I came across a recipe that looks beautiful, but some of these look ugly.
Yeah, a lot of them. If we're making like a traditional soul cake, it's definitely going to look ugly.
Yeah, some of these look rough, like real. Throw whatever we got in the house inside of these cookies.
Mm-hmm.
But the more modern ones, like one of these looks like a little pie. It's a little tiny pie. I'm like, that's cute. That's cute. I wonder if
And
people know the cultural significance who are doing them like today in today's time.
I would hope so. Because I've also read some stories about soul cakes. Some of them being creepypasta, some of them being actual like stuff. And they're used to like represent like I guess they're given to appease spirits of the of All Souls Day, All Saints Day, or not All Saints Day. Yeah, you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So, and I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, so you got spirits and you're giving out treats to the spirits. Let's go. It's like
what culture is that? Mexico does that?
Yes.
With their little. There's a proper name for it that I should know because we just watched Coco at school, but
Dios de los Muertos.
But there's like the name of the place where they put all the pictures in the food. I don't remember what that's called.
Ofrenda.
Yeah. They put food on the ofrenda. So that's the only culture I really like know that has like, I mean, lots of cultures have death rituals, but that's probably the one I'm most familiar with. So I'm like, they feed their dead through that.
Yes, it's and I think I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I read this as well. That
tamales.
Peru also they do still celebrate the souling.
Okay.
And this came from freaking Europe and made it all the way down to Peru and stuff. So it's like
the thing is, I think I love the most about like the Mexico, and the thing with the putting the food on the ofrenda is that it's offered to the ghosts for the aroma.
Yes.
Because they know they can't eat, but maybe they can smell it and remember.
And
I kind of love that.
I love that. Yes.
They're like, listen, we know you can't eat, but we gonna sit it here so you can remember what it was like to eat when you were alive.
And hopefully that doesn't make you hungry.
That's why they put out alcohol too.
Yes.
A lot of people, now that is one thing a lot of cultures do, put out booze for the dead.
Please
pour one out for the homies.
Please. A bottle of wine, your finest Pinot Noir, please, for me.
Oh, is that what you want?
That's what that, please, thank you. I will appreciate that.
Listen, if I'm gonna be dead, you better drop a bottle of tequila on my grave.
Oh, you got it. No problem.
Y'all sit around the gravestone, do a shot, and then go home.
Yes. Oh, God.
Wait, no, you can't drive home because y'all just had alcohol.
It's a shot. It's only an ounce of liquor. It takes an hour for that to go to your system. You'll be fine. Tell spooky stories in the meantime.
There you go. But
oh, my God. Okay.
I wish we had more interesting death culture, like death rituals in the U.S.
That would be nice.
We lost a lot of it, I think, in more modern area. People are scared of the dead.
We just fear death.
Yeah.
That is what the thing
but
is.
But the problem is they fear it to the point where you don't prepare and then you leave your family with huge bills and, like my best friend's grandmother, she prepared everything ahead of time. She had already purchased her casket and her like grave plot decades before she died.
Oh my God.
She was like, I don't want y'all to have to deal with this. My friend knew what she wanted to be buried in, how she wanted her hair done. She had a whole little plan. And that's appreciated because when my mom passed, we were sad, and it didn't matter how many times the doctors told me that she had a fatal illness. My brain was like, she not dying? What are you talking about? So I wasn't really ready. I remember like picking out like there was stuff I wanted to do. Like I wanted to get like a piece of her hair, for like like the they did in the 14th century, like in the Renaissance, where
Oh
they would like
yes.
use the hair in like an art piece or something.
Hmm.
Totally forgot about that in the moment. I just picked an outfit and sent that to the people.
I
And then my dad let me choose the flowers. And I was like, he's like, choose all her favorite flowers. And I was like, they're all out of season. And he was like, I don't care. So she had beautiful like irises and mums and all sorts of flowers that don't grow in December all
no.
over the church. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. But like, I wish we had more stuff in our country. Like,
You know what? We should do a thing for what. This is gonna be weird, but I saw a story about this. Okay, some guy, he knew he was dying, and he just wanted to get tattoos. Okay, and he wanted to leave his children or something. So what he did was he got his whole body covered with tattoos, and then like when he died, he had his skin peeled, whatever, with the tattoos peeled off his skin.
I think I remember this. Part of it was kept.
Yeah, most of that was kept for like his kids to like hang up and like just look at the art that he had on him. And I think it's macabre, definitely, but that's something I would probably do.
They call them human pelts.
Yeah. It's something I would probably do. Not gonna lie.
You want me to save your little Pokemon tattoo?
Pokemon tattoos. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there's more. There's more than one.
Yes, save those. Absolutely. Before I get cremated.
Yeah, might as well.
Okay. So, like
that's
I said,
not as crazy as the dad who wants the skull like beautified and gemstones put in the eye sockets and left on the mantle.
Look, you can make a mug out of my skull if you really want to. That's
no
like badass.
Your children love you.
Exactly.
They're gonna be sad.
Drink your morning coffee out of my head. I know they would be terrible. That would be terrible. Anyway.
Oh my god.
I'm just thinking of different ideas to preserve my memory.
You'll have made a podcast that has been listened to by 250,000 people. And this will be online forever, probably.
This is true. And they will hear this and like, Dad, what the hell were you thinking? Oh God. All right. So I do have my cryptid.
All right.
So this one I saw weeks ago, okay? And like,
was it new to you when you heard about it?
It really was.
Nice.
And it's another, I'm sorry, I had to do it because it's new to me and it was it's from the area. So it's another Bigfoot type monster.
Oh my God, of course it is.
Okay, but check it out. Okay. This one is from Columbia, PA.
Okay.
In between
I don't like that.
In between Lancaster and Columbia.
I like that even less.
It's called the Albat Witch. ALBAT Witch. Albat Witch. That's how I'm going to say it.
Oh my God. The first thing I see is Albat Witch Festival.
Yes.
Why are we like
It just happened like 2 weeks ago. It literally just happened 2 weeks ago. They had a festival of it.
Oh, look at all the little stuffies. It's a little thing with a hat carrying an apple.
Yeah, that's actually where it gets its name from. They used to apparently steal apples. and
Oh, okay.
they really liked apples. Um,
It looks
so
small.
it is small. You know how tall that thing is?
No.
It's 4 feet tall.
Okay. Because you said it was a Bigfoot, but
It's
it's not a
considered.
Bigfoot. It's
It's
little.
not. It's a humanoid. When I say Bigfoot, I mean like a humanoid ape type thing.
I'm looking at a very blurry photo.
But
Bigfoot.
yes, the Outback Witch is a local legend from Columbia, Pennsylvania,
All right.
and they celebrate this thing like I've lived in Lancaster all my life, and I have never heard of this thing. And it's a small man-like
Yeah. How
creature.
did you never hear about a festival
I
down the
had
road
no
from where
idea.
you grew up?
Right? I have no idea. But it used to live in like I guess the wooded areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it lived by Chickies Rock
I don't know
in
where that
Columbia.
is. Where's that?
Neither do I, but I'm pretty sure I've driven by there a lot because Columbia is not that big. And I guess they used to hang around the Susquehanna River banks as well. So
I know what that is.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I lived on the Susquehanna River for like 5 years. Legitimately, like my apartment looked out onto the river. That's why we laugh.
But yeah.
Oh, okay. So Chickies Rock, it's like a county park. From, it's the shortened version of Chickesalunga, meaning place of the crayfish. It's an indigenous word.
I know where it's at. Okay.
So that's why they called it just Chickies, because they don't know how to say words, and I get it. Pennsylvania is full of indigenous towns and names for things that are very hard to say.
I'm pretty sure I drive by there on a daily basis for work.
You drive by the park and it looks like there's like a river there too.
Yeah, there is. There is.
Wait, is the river, I guess, part of the Susquehanna too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that's, yeah. It's that bridge that crosses over from Columbia to Wrightsville.
Okay.
Alrighty,
well, you've been there a lot. So that's where your friend lives.
That's where
in them woods.
I have been to that park too. I don't know.
You should go on a hunt.
I should really do something out there, yeah.
I will watch it as you live stream it.
Okay.
But I will not be out in the woods looking for creatures. You know how I feel about the woods and the things that live there.
No, of course. Oh goodness. But yeah, like this the Outback, which is it's named after, I guess, like I said, a habit it has, and it likes to just take apples, and
that's cute.
It's short for apple snitch. So apple snitch, Outback Witch.
That's not computing, Brian.
Look, I didn't come up with this.
You right. You didn't come up with it, but it because it's ALBAT witch.
Yeah, I know.
All right, whatever.
But yeah, they used to steal apples from picnickers, apparently.
Oh, that's cute.
And they used to throw them at people too. But yeah, it says, legend says that Outback witches, they either became extinct or were driven into extinction after the 19th century. There have been a lot of, supposed sightings at Chickies Rock.
Okay.
They see strange things out there, hear strange noises. They don't know what's going on out there. I mean, it's Columbia, so who knows what's going on out there. In about like the 1950s, 1970s, there was a man-like figure
Uh-huh.
that was seen several times around the area.
Okay.
And I guess legends say that they heard like sounds that sound like a crack of a whip in the woods.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, maybe this could be like, I don't know, an owl bat witch just like doing something out there. Who knows? Like, I don't know. Like, it's a Bigfoot type monster. And I guess not only in Colombia, but it was also spotted in Lancaster, PA, in about like 1973. And it's only like 10 miles away from Colombia, so that's not too far of a stretch for to travel that far. And that was in like the same year that I guess it started appearing, or after it started appearing in Colombia. So between 1950s and 1970s, it was in Colombia, and then a little bit afterwards, it started heading towards Lancaster. So,
okay.
Who knows where it's at now? It's also been, I guess, reported that it's been seen in York County too. So
That's far away.
Look, it's hitting Lancaster, Columbia, York. It's probably just making its way down the East Coast.
Making its way downtown.
Walking fast, faces past, and he's homebound. Apparently, he's going. You know where he's going?
Where?
He's going down the East Coast. He's going down to Florida because that's where all Pennsylvanians go. Okay.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. No thanks.
Okay, so there's a book about it's called Ghosts of the River Towns.
Mm-hmm.
It's by Rick Fisher, and he goes over, basically chronicles different creatures that or different things he's seen in these towns by rivers. He writes a story about he was driving down Route 23.
Okay.
That's near Chickies Rock.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cold February morning, and he had a strange encounter. I'm just reading this now. In the distance, he saw what appeared to be a person walking in the middle of the road. And as Fisher got closer, he slowed down significantly because the person seemed small enough to be a child. So, like I said, this thing was 4 feet tall.
Oh, so he was like, "Oh no, this child is lost."
Some child's lost, and it was like a thick, thin figure.
Ew.
And yeah, he said it was like about 5 feet tall. It was covered in hair, and it just stood in the road. Fisher, he flashed on his high beams to get a better look.
See, I was about to say, then he turned around and didn't engage.
Yep.
No, he flashed his high beams. Continue.
No, he flashed his high beams, and then the creature did turn around, and it had these yellow eyes that were staring right back at his car. And then after he flashed his high beams on it, the figure just vanished. Right there. In the middle of the road. It just vanished. Yeah, and like he just wrote about it as part of his little book. But what drew me to this thing, to this Owl Bat Witch, is that in the beginning of October, there is an Owl Bat Witch Day festival.
And we missed it.
It was October 8th.
It was literally like 30 minutes away.
Yes.
And we missed it.
It happens from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it's just a freaking festival. You get ghost tours. There are vendors there. You get music. You get artists there. People dressing up as an Owl Bat Witch. It's...
Yo, when's the Mothman? We gotta go do that.
Oh, I think it's in. I'm drawing a blank. I'm pretty sure it's like either July or August. So we got to go there definitely next year.
Third weekend in September.
Damn, really? I was so off.
Yep.
Next year?
Next year, I guess.
Well, I know what I'm doing. September, third weekend.
Going to South Carolina.
West Virginia, ma'am.
Whoops,
West
wrong
Virginia.
Whoops.
Oh goodness, but yeah. If you want to know any more about the Owl Bat Witch, you can definitely go to owlbatwitchday.com. And it basically gives you like a little legend of the Owl Bat Witch, things that go on during the day of the festival, which actually look pretty cool. And I am really sad that I missed it this year, but I will definitely try to make it next year. And hopefully it is always in the beginning of October, I think. So let's hope that's a thing, and I'll make it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that's what I got for this week.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. I'm going to say, with a lot of work that I'm doing right now, like my main job, is like 45 plus hours a week. We probably won't be having 3-hour podcasts anymore. Things will probably come out in parts if I do like big cases like we do, like I did with, Bundy or Manson. Those will probably be more likely, but hopefully you'll still be happy even if the podcast is only like an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. Just gotta sort my time a little differently now. But
unfortunately,
yeah. So thank you for listening.
Yes, we appreciate it so much.
And have a good Halloween.
Yes, make sure you get those soul cakes ready.
But make them cute.
Please make them cute. Add some frosting at least.
The ancestors want frosting. Anyway. Happy Halloween.
See ya. Bye.